It's no mean feat to be a vigilante in this day and age. By day, I pose as a normal everyman accountant. By night, I go out onto the streets and crunch the numbers. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire, here to keep talking about the first edition Pathfinder Vigilante, today going over their skills and feats, and also we'll be throwing in the Vigilante talent selection, since many of those also offer up feats for you as well, or have abilities that work very nicely in conjunction with the combat feats we'll be selecting. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now, let's dive in and get into all of this because there's a lot to cover. And to start us off with skills, we have acrobatics, which runs off of your dexterity. This lets you balance on narrow paths, move around in combat, and avoid attacks of opportunity by tumbling. This is very useful and incredibly up your alley and works nicely since at most, you're probably going to be wearing medium armors. Then we have the appraise skill. Works from your intelligence. This is normally an NPC skill and is not really worth investing in unless this is combined with the entrepreneur social talent. You run a shop where you conduct all sorts of appraisals, verifying the authenticity of various works of art or whatever historical objects may come your way. In that case, this works out pretty nicely overall, or at least I would say it works out pretty nicely from at least a roleplay perspective and feeding into that specific mechanic that the Vigilante offers. Then we have bluff, which goes off of your charisma. The need to lie, fib, or otherwise pass off fiction as truth, bluff. Also great for use in feinting, all the way around a great skill and absolutely essential for any face, which is what you will be, at least in your social talent or social persona. Then we move on from bluff to the climb skill, which runs off of your strength. You have light to medium armor, so at most only the occasional point will be necessary, and your strength is mediocre. It's not the greatest, it's not the worst, but that one point will be enough to get you by until you have access to magical means of circumventing any barriers that you might need to climb. Then next we have the craft skill, or at least the series of different crafts that go under the craft skill. Also working off of intelligence, these are more NPC skills unless you are building this as specifically part of your social identity. This will be really easy to skip. Then we go on to diplomacy, another skill working from charisma. Another one that's essential for any face, particularly one trying to cement their social identity. You're going to need to know how to play nice with people. Hell, even as a vigilante, being able to negotiate with people is going to be useful. It's not all going to be stick. You can offer carrot and stick in order to better motivate people. Then we go on from there to disable device, which works from your dexterity. This lets you deactivate traps, unlock locks, and all the way around is going to be pretty useful for you to have, especially for any time you're infiltrating a place. Then we come to the disguise skill, which again goes off of charisma. It's essential to your class, but you get a ton of bonuses, and you have a good charisma score to ensure that it's got a solid bonus. On the one hand, leaning into it and really maxing it out is going to just make you unstoppably unspottable. Very few people will penetrate your disguises. But that might be a waste of your skill points to go that far with it. It might be good to spread them around a fair bit, but you won't be hurt by putting a few into it. Then we have Escape Artist, another one that works from dexterity. This is good for escaping bindings, manacles, and grapple checks by opponents. Given how solid your combat skill could potentially be if you're picking up the Avenger type of Vigilante, then you may not really need to worry about this too terribly much. But still, not a bad skill to have, and again, you've got some solid bonuses going into it. And then we come around to intimidate. Working off of your charisma, this will allow you to demoralize and terrify your foes and all the people around you, small dogs and children included. It's going to be incredibly useful for any face, definitely worthwhile to have input points into regularly. And now we come on to the various knowledge skills that you have. Now these ones fluctuate a little bit because depending on what your social identity is, these could be very useful and worth putting points into, or not quite so much. But we have knowledge dungeoneering. Working from intelligence, this covers spelunking, caverns, aberrations, and oozes. So depending on where you're at, this can still be very useful, even in a cityscape setting. Depending on how ancient and vast the sewer systems are beneath, or if the city is sitting over top of a massive cavern network, then this skill will still be regularly useful for you. Or if you're going out and doing regular classic adventuring kind of shenanigans, then this will still be a great skill to have. The next one is knowledge engineering. Still working from intelligence, this covers things like buildings and fortifications or technological items if they're in the campaign as well. Now, again, depending on what your social identity is, this could be really useful to have points into regularly. That investment will pay off, but it still is iffy how much this comes up, and this is going to be very much DM and campaign specific. However, this doesn't get a red rating or listed as a total NPC skill for a vigilante, just because the class is more prone to having regular adventures in a cityscape. So this could come up quite a bit more frequently, or clever players will have more frequent opportunities to make good use of it. So it does get to be a bit better rated. And then we have knowledge local, and much like knowledge engineering, this one's value kind of fluctuates a little bit. This covers humanoids, local legends, laws, customs, inhabitants, etc. Stuff like that. Knowledge about the immediate locale in which you find yourself. And that can be useful information, but it's not always life or death. It's still useful. And again, for a vigilante, it's going to be more regularly useful. But this is one that you could probably comfortably skip or get away with only putting the occasional point in. Knowledge nobility, on the other hand, is going to be regularly useful for you, given the frequency with which you're going to be in urban locations and the like. You know about the various royalty, their heraldry, lineages, and significant personalities. And this is important to know, especially if you're going with your classic archetype of vigilante. If you're going the Batman route of things, where you're a wealthy socialite and the like, you're going to want to know this information. That's going to be massively useful, and given the kinds of campaigns a vigilante is more likely to be involved with, you're going to be conducting more espionage and the like, so recognizing heraldry is going to take on a greater degree of importance for that kind of a campaign. Then we have perception. Working from wisdom, which is our dump stat, this is the most rolled skill in the game. Max it and find whatever items you can to help overcome the deficiencies we get from having wisdom be the dump stat. Then we have perform, another charisma-based skill. If this is part of your social identity, then it's great to have and put points into, but otherwise, you don't have any class mechanics that work from it, you can skip this one pretty reliably. Same thing with profession, another one that works off of wisdom. This is a skill of miscellaneous skills that fill in the gaps for all of your different crafting skills and the like. It's NPC all the way unless it's part of your social identity. And now we have the ride skill, which works from your dex. You're not really a mounted combatant, but again, if you're the wealthy socialite type for your social identity, then it's expected to some degree you're going to have some skill at riding, even if it's not something you are amazing at. So you can find some uses for it. Certainly it doesn't hurt to have 1 point thrown in to get that +3 miscellaneous modifier to kick in for you. Next is sense motive, another wisdom-based skill. This is great for detecting if someone is lying or withholding something, lying by omission. So sense motive, another great skill for a face to have. And then we also have sleight of hand, which works from your dexterity. This lets you palm objects, pick pockets, do fancy card tricks. This can be great for if you're at a social gathering in your social identity and you use sleight of hand to lift keys or whatever information you might need to track down whatever particular targets or uncover whatever sinister plot may be brewing and simmering beneath the surface. So again, another great skill to have. And then we move on from sleight of hand to stealth, which is another dex skill. This is one of those skills where it's like, how are you a vigilante and are not maxing this out? You want to remain unnoticed as much as possible and work from ambush, so max this out every level. And survival, another great skill to have for you, even though it works from wisdom. This lets you follow tracks and hunt down your target, avoid getting lost, and also avoiding natural hazards. If you're out in the wilderness, this is also a great for survival, although again, as you advance in level, you'll have magical means of overcoming those particular hazards in most campaigns, so this is better more for the tracking. And then we also have swim, which works from your strength, and unless you're on a ship, this only needs 1 point at most before you are going to be comfortably covered. Now, if you are on a ship or the campaign's focused around large bodies of water, then obviously this gets bumped up to a blue rating and will be massively important for keeping you alive. Then, lastly, we have use magic device, working from charisma, and holy arcane objects, Batman, you shot a fireball! This will give you so much utility. This is worth having on your utility belt. Use magic device is just, it cannot be overstated how useful this skill is. The wealth and variety of magic items that you'll have access to and be able to activate all the different wands, this will immediately replace the heal skill so fast for you and your party, just because you can use wands of cure light wounds so quickly with it. Definitely great to have, another skill that is must have for maxing out. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Go on down to hit those like or dislike buttons and let me know your thoughts and comments down below. And remember that if you're new here to the Gamers Den, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time. You have yourselves a good night. I'm gonna go get some sleep now.